Hello YouTube, this is Chris here, Experimental Services. Before I start this video, I want to tell you thank you for the prayers for my mother-in-law and for me and my wife to be able to come back home. Whoever prayed for us, thank you. Uh, she was having medical issues and she had to get surgery on her foot, and so she wasn't able to walk, and that's why we were there taking care of her. So she went in today, and they finally gave her the good news that she could get the stitches out. She has to wear a boot, but she's able to walk by herself, and she's got to take it slow and get her strength back on her legs. Um, she appears to be doing good, thank God, and we were able to come home. Thank God again. So thank you for the prayers; they're much appreciated. Um, God works miracles every day. So please do not click off this video. Watch it all the way through. Um, no matter what wording I use, no matter what I say, don't instantly just click off because you don't like to hear certain words. Um, so I have proven multiple times that the earth is biblically flat. Moon, sun, and stars in our sky where God put them. Um, and I've also got some Mandela effects in this video as well. So just in this verse alone, there's three of them that have been changed that are not in any of my Bibles. They're not my footnotes because I got footnotes from my Bible says the earth is flat, which I have to remake because the Mandela effect decided it wanted to strike and remove videos off YouTube and off of flash drives that I have, because I have every single YouTube video backed up, including personal videos, family events, uh, kids' school things, stuff like that, that I never would have deleted, and they're gone. So, and that's one of the videos. And I know that YouTube didn't just remove it. Uh, and even if they did remove it, the Mandela effect took it off my flash drive because it's no longer there. And I had it recorded. I remember recording it. I remember reading my footnotes. Um, it was in 2018, I believe. If you remember that video, if you're an old subscriber of mine, old fan of mine, let me know because I remember recording it. But it's nowhere to be found. And I remember all throughout the years. Let me know what's happened to you. I promise I'm trying not to make this too long. I'm old school where we had camera rolls that you took in, you got developed, and then we also had Polaroids. And I had pictures I know for a fact I've had, and I thought that I maybe misplaced them or they got lost or they got destroyed, but I don't remember any of those things happening. I remember having them, and all of a sudden some of these things have disappeared. And now I believe it's the Mandela effect because these videos now have disappeared. Not just on YouTube, which they message me when certain videos are being removed, but those should still be on my flash drives. And there's ones that have been removed off my channel that YouTube didn't message me about, and they're also off my flash drives. And I wouldn't have deleted them. That was the whole purpose of me backing them up. So anyway, I believe I said there's some Mandela effects in this. And there's a Mandela effect in another one of the Bible verses I'm going to read you that proves. I mean, there's multiple, and I'm going to redo that video, but there's just these few prove we, the sun, moon, and stars are in our Earth sky where God put them. They're not where NASA says. That we do live on a biblical flat Earth. So, anyway, we're at Genesis 1. Hopefully, you didn't click off and you're still watching. Genesis 1:14, and God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky." That used to be expanse in the NIV and the King James. It said firmament. It still says firmament, but expanse and firmament. When you look up the definition, because I remember looking up the definition in the video, or for the video, it says vault. So it's kind of funny that the Mandela effect changed the definition of firmament or expanse to a vault, which is an arched roof or a dome or a ceiling, which is exactly what God put over us and put the moon, sun, and stars in that. So, anyway, a vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs and mark sacred times and days and years. See, if you're going on NASA's model and you look at it, Christians don't follow that because it's not God's model. They're trying to follow NASA's model and God's model at the same time. Then you got the witches and pagans and warlocks and stuff of that nature, and they're following NASA's model, and then they do what? They use numerology. Um, they use the sun, moon, and stars for witchcraft at certain times of the seasons and days. They use them, um, all kinds of stuff, especially on Halloween. Christians should not celebrate Halloween, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people just clicked off, but that's another one of the devil holidays. Look it up. Witches tell you. That's a sacred day for them. Oh, Hallows Eve. Anyway, let's move on before I get off into another ramble. I got so many videos I got to make and get up. Um, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky, and give light on the earth. And it was so. God, this is another Mandela effect. I have quoted this multiple times, read it multiple times to people, proving the moon, sun, and stars are in Earth's sky where God put them. So I know the way this verse reads. I'll read it the way it is now, and then I'll read it again the way it used to say before the Mandela effect. God made the two greater lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky, not outside Earth's sky, but inside the vault of the sky, to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. God saw it was good. The way it used to read is God made the two greater lights. The sun, the greater light, he gave to govern the night. The moon, he gave its lesser light to govern the day, or the night rather. He also made the stars. It always said he gave the sun its greater light to govern the day, and he gave the moon its lesser light to govern the night. He gave them their lights. It always read that. Now it no longer even says moon and sun, or sun and moon. It just says the great lights. So anyway, let's move on. So this is a biblical flat earth. Give or take. Not the flat disc with the turtle carrying it on its back, or the other stupid one I hear. If the earth was flat, then the cats would knock everything off by now. No, that's just stupidness. God knew what he was doing. He put this up here. He sits on the circle of the earth, the Bible says. We live on the circle. This is the Atlantic ice wall. How is somebody in 1893 know that the Bible says the Atlantic ice wall is the borders? The sun, moon, and stars are in our sky. I used to have this printed out and enlarged on the back of my window, and the front window of my car, and then also my YouTube app, or YouTube card as well, was blown up and on my front window and my back window of my car. I want to get this as a poster in my house. So, yeah, this is the biblical flat earth minus the firmament. These are all Bible verses down here. Because at this time, this is when the pagan society was, like the Romans and stuff like that, were really trying to push the Christians and the Jews and everybody to believe in what's now NASA's model. You got to ask yourself, a bunch of red flags should pop up that supposedly, and we didn't know about these things until our technology that we have now. That's how we saw where the moon was and the sun was and the stars were. And we saw these other planets. When in this time, these pagan cultures were recording these things in paper, in books of these things, how they were seeing these things. See, so God was telling us, and we were writing it down in his book, what his creation is. Okay, the biblical flat earth. And the devil was telling the pagans and the witches and so on his model, even then, before NASA. Because before NASA, every school, pretty much every nation, all the earth taught a biblical flat earth. And that's why he made this. Go look it up. His name is Professor Orlando Ferguson. And on Wikipedia, it calls it a myth, the flat earth myth. But it gives a pretty accurate description of who he is and why he was doing this, why he made this map. and it's got some of the many, but this is just some of the biblical verses that talk about a biblical flat Earth. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. I want to get this as a poster for my house. So this is again describing the firmament of what the you can't we pretty much can't get through it. The vault, the firmament, the expanse, the dome, whatever you want to call it, this is what it is, and we can't get through it. This is also what a lunar eclipse is. Okay. It's not what NASA says that it is, a shadow and shadows and shadows and shadows. This is who works in the shadows? The devil. That's why everything is shadows on NASA's model. Okay, so Job 37:18. Can you join him? This is another Mandela effect, by the way. In spreading out the sky, you can't spread out a ball. It used to say, as hard as a mirror of cast bronze. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It said, I'm trying to read it the same way it's written. So let's go ahead and read it the way it's written now. System Mandela effect. Can you join him in spreading out the sky? As a mirror of cast bronze. It used to read, can you join him in spreading out the sky? A mirror as hard as cast bronze. So these two here should be here. A mirror as hard as cast bronze. So the Mandela effect kind of changed the wording a little bit, but you get what it says. It's a cast bronze, so it's hard. It's a hard metal, a firmament. You can't get through it, and it's a mirror. So how we get the lunar eclipse is the moon has a dark side, and NASA within their lies proves this. This is how the devil works. He tells the truth within the lies. It's like he did with Adam and Eve, and you're gonna die, and God said you were gonna die, but I promise you won't die. He didn't tell them, hey, you eat that, you're gonna spiritually die. You physically won't die, but you'll spiritually die, and that'll pull you away from God. He didn't say that. He twisted it, but he told the truth also. He said that God said you would die. I promise you, you won't die. So he told the truth. You physically won't die, and that's what he was telling Eve. And then she died, and her husband died spiritually because they disobeyed God. Same thing he does here. So the moon, with his dark side, turns around. Okay, so on a lunar eclipse, we're seeing the dark side of the moon, and that's how you get your phases of the moon as well. Because as it's turning, you're getting less and less of the light part of the moon that gives its light, that God says in Genesis it gives its light. It turns around and you're getting that dark part of the moon. So when it gets fully turned around and it's an eclipse, okay, so now you're seeing the full dark side of the moon. And what happens when you shine a flashlight at a mirror? It shines back at you, right? So that's what happens, is that when the dark side of the moon gets fully visible, they call it a lunar eclipse. And then when you get that white ring around the moon, what you're seeing is the light of the moon reflecting back from that mirror that spoke of here in Job, a mirror a mirror as hard as cast bronze. It's hard to read it that way because I've read it so many times the other direction. Just like the book of Genesis, just like Genesis with the sun and moon being missing and all that. So, and I'll explain to you real quick why I'm here. What a solar eclipse is because, and then we'll get on to the rest of the video, why is NASA shooting rockets at our moon? But this is important to know what the biblical earth is so that you know what you're looking at and you know why, and it makes you question, why are they doing these things? Because even on their model, a lot of their stuff doesn't make any sense. Like they say they're shooting shadows. They're shooting a shadow of the moon, which wouldn't make any sense because it would just hit the moon anyway. And I'll show you, even on their model, it would hit the moon. unless it's some cheap dollar store rocket. But anyway, so if you look at this model, the flat Earth biblical model, um, what it is you got the moon and the sun, and see a lot of times you get a daytime sun, or you get a daytime moon rather, not a daytime sun. Of course you get a daytime sun, duh. You get a daytime moon. That would only be possible on a biblical flat Earth. And you got we have the sun at the same time, or the moon at the same time as somebody else is supposed to be on the other side of the Earth. They shouldn't be getting it at the same time as us on NASA's model, but yet they do. Or the 30 days a night that you get in Alaska. You wouldn't get that on NASA's model, but you would get it on a biblical flat Earth model. Okay? Because Alaska is part of the United States. So if Alaska got a 30 days a night on a global model, then there'd be a lot more states, just in the United States alone, that wouldn't get the sun. Okay? If it's as big as NASA says it is and where they say it is, that's what would happen. So this is what happens. You got the moon, sun, and stars on circuits. The stars are actually over with the moon. That's why when you don't see the stars during the day, but when you get a daytime moon, you'll get some of the brighter stars shining through, because they're clustered with the moon, the Bible says. Okay, and they're on circuits, the Bible also says. And I'll point always out in my biblical flat Earth video that the Bible does say flat Earth. NASA's a liar and they work for the devil. I'm just trying to make this quick. So what happens is they're on a circuit. They go around in a circle, woo, 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 like that. Okay, so what happens, not only do they do that, but they go back and forth like this. So another thing that I hear a lot of, besides cats will knock everything off, and the turtle with a disc on its back floating through space, is, well, wouldn't everybody fry because the sun is so big? No, see, you're still trying to mix God's model with the devil's model. You're taking the size of the sun and the moon and stuff, the way NASA says, and try to put it on a biblical flat Earth, and that won't work. You cannot mix God and the devil. They don't work. You shrink them down, okay? Put them in our sky, and it works. Okay, so what it is that not only they're going in a circle, but they also sway back and forth like this. And if you go out and look, and you've probably noticed it before, and you'll remember it when I say this, you'll go out, and one day the sun will be over here, one morning. And then you look, and the sun will be over here the next morning, or a few mornings ago later. And then the next time you go out, you'll have the sun over here, because it's going like this. And so is the moon. The moon does the same thing. So how a solar eclipse works is sometimes the moon is faster than the sun. That's how we get the daytime moon. So what happens is the sun comes around like this, and it gets in front of the moon and or sun, and it blocks the sun off, blocks the light of the sun. And so, because the sun doesn't spin like the moon does, doesn't have a dark side. I know they're trying to say, NASA's trying to say that the sun has a dark side now, when all these years it didn't. It was just one big old ball of fire. But so, because it doesn't spin to a dark side, what happens is the moon, the closer it gets to it like this, the more it covers the sun. So what happens is it gets closer, you get more of a solar eclipse. It blocks the sun. That makes a heck of a lot more sense than a shadow. And the moon having a dark side turning around and shining back on itself from that mirror as hard as cast bronze, as you saw in Job, makes a lot more sense in shadows. So go to Isaiah, and I believe this is one of the reasons why we get Operation Fishbowl and Dominic, which I say demonic. Sounds familiar. I mean, similar, because it's a play on words the way Illuminati does. So, and then Stargates and so on and so on. Why do they have Stargates, real Stargates, like the Stargate SG-1 show? That's telling the truth right out in the open. Is to try to get through God's stars. For this reason here, Isaiah 14:13, which would also, this would not make sense on NASA's model, because NASA says there's billions and trillions of stars and light years and galaxies and so on, which doesn't make any sense if God sits on the circle of the earth and his throne is on the circle of the earth, but he's higher than the stars because he would be higher or lower than any of his creation ever. There's three heavens: the heaven where the moon, sun, and stars are. Then you got or the sky. Then you got the moon, sun, and stars. No, let's rewind that. You got the three heavens: the moon, sun, and stars, first heaven. Second heaven is where the devil and demons and evil spirits live. Look that up. They're not below. They're the second heaven. And in the third heaven is where God, Jesus, and his angels are. Okay? Because he's not going to put his creation any higher than him. So Isaiah 14:13 says, you said in your heart, this is after he cast the devil to earth. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost high of Mount Zephon. Okay? So why would the devil want to sit billions and trillions of light years away from God or from earth? Get what I'm saying? Like, he wants to rule earth the way God does. And that would make more sense. If God can see everything all the time, everywhere, it would make more sense on a biblical flat earth. Because he can just look from his throne that's sitting on the circle of the earth, look at us, and see the whole earth. The same way the devil took Jesus on a high mountain and said, hey, here's all the nations, here's all the kings of the world. Bow down to me, I'll give it all to you. Doesn't make sense on a ball earth, but it does on a biblical earth. A biblical flat earth. But this is another reason why I believe they're trying to do Operation Fishbowl and Operation Dominic and all these different operations where they're shooting nuclear weapons into Earth's sky. They're trying to break that dome. Then also, you got Stargate. What's a gate do? A gate opens. They're trying to open the firmament so they can get through. And that could be why they're trying to shoot the moon, is they're saying they're shooting a shadow. But what they're really trying to shoot, I don't think they're trying to shoot the moon either. I think they're trying to shoot the firmament. And that's how they're trying to play it off. Because the same reason they did with Operation Fishbowl, think about it, fishbowl is what? A dome. It's a bowl. Is they're trying to break the dome. And this is their way of doing it. Which is why this is one of the many verses I believe why, because the devil's trying to get where God is, and he's trying to take his throne. So let's move on. But I believe that's what Operation Fishbowl is, Operation Dominic or Operation Demonic, play on words from the Illuminati. In 1962, the U.S. government fired nuclear weapons at our sky. Why would they do that if they weren't trying to break the firmament of their dome? Okay? You got Operation Teapot. What's a teapot? If you take the lid off of it and turn it upside down, what is it? It's a dome, a firmament, a vault, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. So look at the naming. Operation Fishbowl, upside down, vault or dome, like this. You got Operation Demonic or Dominic. Operation Teapot. These are all part of the same operation of firing things in our sky, trying to break the dome, break the firmament. And I believe it's possible that's what they're trying to do with these three rockets that they're going to be shooting tomorrow during the solar eclipse. Okay, so let's move on because I don't want to make this too long. Go look up real stargates. That was one that they supposedly found in 1920s in Baghdad. That's been around for a long time. Long time. And see, I believe aliens are demonic. More proof. Just like Operation, just like Stargate SG-1, it was contacting alien lives on other planets, right? I believe it's the aliens and UFOs and all that stuff has always been here because they can't get in, they can't get out. They're trying to get in, or trying to get out rather, because of, like, say, verses like Isaiah 14:13, where the devil says, I'm going to sit higher than God's stars. I'm going to sit higher than God. Okay? Barry looked at the real Stargates. Go look this up. This is crazy. Like, for real. I've known about these for years and years and years. This is what NASA, and I know this is not NASA, but this is Vanderbilt University. Go look it up. NASA says the same garbage. That a lunar eclipse on their model, again with the shadow play, and the devil, shadow people, lives in the shadows, doesn't like the light because the light exposes him for what he is and exposes his lies. A lunar eclipse, according to NASA's model, it's the Earth blocking the moon. How does that work? Like, for real? Like, that does not work at all. But the one we're going to have tomorrow, that they're supposedly going to be shooting the moon's shadow, that even on their model it would still hit the moon if their model was accurate, and it's not. Their name is Nishab, which is in Hebrew is deceiver. Their name spells Satan if you rearrange the letters, but the forked devil or snake tongue, which is the devil, and then you got the snake eating itself in rebirth, the pagan god Orbis, and you put those two snakes together, but the way where they're formed at, they make a T. Now rearrange the letters, you got Satan. So, the moon or the sun hits the moon and casts a shadow to Earth. None of this would make sense today. All the moon, sun, and stars would look like blurs, going thousands of billions or whatever miles an hour, tittering back and forth, weeble wobbling. All the sun, moon, and stars would not be perfectly in tune and going around the sky and not really ever changing except for the sun and moon going back and forth a little bit, side to side. But they don't really change. On NASA's model, they would constantly be changing, be nothing but blurry sky. So, or blurry images in the sky. So yeah, this is, I already described to you what the biblical flat Earth solar and lunar eclipse is. And this is NASA's model. You tell me which makes more sense. Okay? This is what they're supposed to be doing tomorrow. This is right on nasascience.gov, so it's their official thing. To study the atmosphere, NASA's rockets will fly into October eclipse shadow. A NASA sounding rocket mission will launch 3 rockets during the 2023 annual eclipse in October to study how the sudden drop in sunlight affects our upper atmosphere. All these years, and they never tried this, ever. It's now, with all these other crazy things going on in the world. There, a lot of it looks like we're getting closer and closer to the second coming of God's Son Jesus, and now all of a sudden they're wanting to shoot our sky again. Because I don't think they're really going to try to shoot the moon, and I definitely don't try to think they're going to try to shoot the shadow. Because how would they hit the shadow anyway? It's going to fly through and hit the moon, even on their model, unless they got some rinky-dink rocket. Just say they could get through. Say that all these NASA space launches are real. I got so many videos I got to make, it's not even funny. And I'm trying my best, guys. But even if their launches were real, why wouldn't they use a weather balloon? If they're just trying to check, right? Because weather balloons can go up that high. That's one of the videos that I'm going to make. Probably tomorrow and get it up, but it's proof that the fisheye lens is being used to show the curvature, same way NASA does. And it people use these weather balloons to send an iPhone up into space. GoPro sends a guitar into space. I'll talk about that and touch on that more tomorrow in tomorrow's video. I'm going to try to get it up tomorrow. And you can see they're in space, where NASA always shows their fake, their stuff that isn't fake, CGI cartoons and so on, and movie props. Their actual videos of space look the same as these other 2 videos that clearly show that the horizon is flat. that it as long as the camera is not going up or down, it doesn't change. It's flat. When it goes up, it changes it to a curve up, and when it goes down, the fisheye makes it curve down. But NASA's gotten really good at it with their lies, that they're able to position their cameras a certain way that as long as it's not being manipulated, and the way they click through cameras really quick, especially on live streams, you don't get to see that camera move in a position that it shouldn't move, where it's going to make it go up. But every once in a while they slip. So anyway, let's move on to the next. This is my video that I made in 4 years ago. As you clearly see, that was made with a very cheap camera. I bought it at a pawn shop, and I filmed that through my moon sunroof of my Pontiac. And you clearly see that it looks like it's being filmed through a telescope. NASA should be the only one to be able to film stuff like this, or astronomers with high-grade telescopes. They shouldn't be able to film with a cheap couple $100 camera where it literally looks like a ball in the sky. You can see the craters. And I got tons of videos like this on my channel that I filmed myself, that I know were not edited in any way to make it look like this. You can see the craters in the moon. You can see the ball. It looks like a ball hanging in the sky, so on and so on. Matches God's model that even in the book of Genesis said moon, sun, and stars are in our sky. Watch this. This is Weather Nation, well known. This is the day ago. Weather thing like Weather Channel. Now you tell me this looks like a shadow. This looks like, you tell me this looks like this. That it looks like a ball going in front of the sun. A ball hanging in the sky, in their sky where God says he put our moon, sun, and stars, going in front of the sun. Look at that. And also I want to point out, first of all, it looks just like a ball. Second of all, I want to point out is, if the moon is reflected in the light surface, the whole surface of the moon would be reflecting. The whole reason NASA says it's the dark side of the moon is because the moon doesn't spin, which is a lie. You can look up in the sky and you see it spinning. And that's why you get different phases of the moon, waning and waxing and all that. But you also see, as it's moving, not only will you see the different phases of the moon, of the dark side coming into play, which they call it different phases, but you also see the craters change. And also, I want to point out, see all these dark spots on the sun? You shouldn't be able to see that. If the sun is what NASA says it is, you should not be able to see any of these designs on the sun unless it was an actual ball of hanging in our sky. It's the only way you could see that. Because just like the moon with the craters, like I showed you in the video that I filmed myself, you wouldn't be able to see all these if it was just a light shining through the sky, which is what NASA says it is. That's how all their shadow play works. Again, who plays in the shadows and stays in the shadows? The devil. So, also what I want to point out too, like I was saying, if the moon is all reflective surface, and the reason we don't get the bright side of the moon, or we got the dark side of the moon, the only reason that we don't see it lit up is because the sun never hits it. That's NASA's words. Go look it up. So why do we see the shine right here from the sun? Clearly see it shining. You see the light hitting it right here from the sun. But that doesn't look like this. Why? Because this gives its own light, as God says in the Bible. This is the dark side of the moon, was never meant to have light. It was meant to give us the phases of the moon for signs and seasons and for holy days. Go look at the Jewish calendar and the Jewish holy days and stuff like that. They all have to do with phases of the moon. You can't have phases if you don't have a dark side turning. Okay? And that's why the book of Revelation says, even in the book of Revelation, it says the moon will no longer give its light and the sun will no longer give its light. Because God shuts the lights off to both. Okay? But as you clearly see, that's a ball. That is not a shadow. That's a ball. So let's move on. So And I'm going to go put all these videos in the description, so go watch them. Um, I brought this up because I had seen multiple videos of it and pictures and stuff like that of people capturing, especially pilots, of the sun under the clouds. And there was a fireman I used to know, and I brought it up to a few people, but that had the same kind of a story. But this fireman that I used to know told me that he was fighting one of the fires here in California, and he was up on a real high mountain, and it was day breaking, and he saw something similar to this, and it scared the shit out of him. Pardon my language, because at that time, until I showed him the Earth was biblically flat, he thought that he would see the sun up here, right? Being as high as he would see the sun up here, not down here in the clouds. And it never came up out of the clouds. And he saw this here. The whole day, from what he was telling me, the way he was explaining it is pretty much that whole day while they were on that mountain, the sun looked like this. It never was up here, which didn't make any sense to him, and he said it scared him. He didn't know what to think. But now that, well, when I explained the biblical flat Earth and where the sun, moon, and stars actually are, that he understood. He's like, oh, that makes more sense now. But all that time, it scared him. He didn't know because he's like, that doesn't make any sense. But watch this, guys. That's clearly where the sun is, because none of this other. Then you got, right here. Look, that's the sun under the clouds. Okay. Another airplane. They're showing how high they are, their altitude, their level. Showing all the gauges. Now look. Again, look for the brightest spot, the hot spot. And that's where you'll see the sun. That's all sun. The sun should be up here. That's how the clouds cover it. But look. Look at that. That's clearly the sun. Right there. That's sun. It's not where NASA says it is, guys. Hopefully you made it this far to my ramblings. um, but they're coherent ramblings. I know I've been told they're incoherent ramblings, but they're coherent ramblings. Yes, I ramble, but I end up tying it all together. Uh, just as the Bible, you got to stay in the Bible to make it all make sense. And that's another video I'm gonna make about Jesus isn't God, he's the Son of God, that I was kind of working on getting up today. Hopefully sometime in the next couple days I'll get that one up as well, as more biblical proof, as I've shown in my Jesus isn't God but Son of God video that I made. And I pointed out in other videos that he never claimed to be God. God never claimed to be Jesus. They always claimed the Son of God and God. And when you cherry pick words out of the Bible and don't read it its entirety or its context, the devil can easily twist it and manipulate it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there so I can get this uploaded. Hopefully it's not too super long and you guys made it to the end. But yeah, why do you think they're shooting the moon or at the what they say is the shadow of the moon? What's your ideas? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Do you agree with part of what I'm saying? None at all what I'm saying. Like I said, I still think it's another thing like Operation Fishbowl, and they're trying to get to the firmament. They're trying to get to the dome, and they're making it worded in such a way to where people don't question it. Well, most people don't question it. Biblical flat earthers, we question it because we've seen this over and over and over again. And in the Bible, it literally said, like you saw in the book of Isaiah, where he wants to sit above God's stars. To do that, he has to break through part of the firmament to be able to get to where God's stars are. So he could sit higher than God. So he's having his cronies, NASA, do everything they can to get through the firmament, and I believe that's a lot of what these rocket launches are. I believe that's what they are. Is they're trying to get through the firmament, and they can't do it. Uh, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there because I can ramble on for days and days and days about this. Just ask my wife; she'll tell you. Ask my kids; they'll tell you. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. Use all the links in the About Me section. Rate, comment, subscribe. Much love. God bless, and I'll see you on the next one.